Episode 532. Life in the online game remained the same, grinding dungeons, running quests. In the end, these three things were the core themes of Glory. The various updates over the years have just made these three core activities a bit more engaging. But the basic framework itself has never changed. The major guilds had all compromised and backed down, but Yeshu remained on his guard. He'd known from the moment he founded the guild that these people would be his enemies forever. This temporary compromise only meant the other side hadn't yet found a way to strike back. Who knows when they'll get a devious idea and launch a sudden, storm-like attack. Of course, they wouldn't give him any advance warning. The best way to gather intelligence, of course, is to find a spy who's universally despised and reviled. But Happy had just been established. They didn't have anyone they could truly trust, and even if they did, those people's levels were far too low to join any of the major club guilds. But this does show that Happy's ambitions are set pretty high. Right from its inception, it became a direct competitor to the club guilds. This was virtually unprecedented in the history of Glory. Even in the new server's clearing phase, none of those strategies were applicable. Happy had to develop step by step. After Blue River returned to using his main Blue Brook Guild leader account, he never logged into the Jui account again. However, since Yeshu had closed the guild's application process early, the Happy Guild's membership hadn't grown any further. Blue River had already taken care of assigning all these existing members long ago. Everyone was just leveling up as usual, content and harmonious, with nothing going wrong. But compared to the first few days after the guild was founded, everyone's enthusiasm had naturally cooled quite a bit. You could see it in the guild's experience bar. The enthusiasm for daily quests had cooled off. It wasn't like those first few days, where the guild tasks were everyone's entire game. Given Happy's current situation, it was hardly in a position to demand more. The guild's best course of action was to just develop quietly and steadily. Over the next few days, Yeshu kept an eye on the situation at Thousand Wave Lake, while also regularly checking in with guild members about their status in other leveling zones. Yet, the game world was unexpectedly peaceful, as if all conflict had suddenly vanished. 5 days passed in a flash, and both Qincheng and Mahupao had smoothly joined the Happy Guild. Once midnight struck, the Happy Guild would be eligible to challenge the Thousand Waves Lake dungeon record. Over the past 5 days, the dungeon records for Thousand Wave Lake had seen a few scattered breakthroughs. Yeshu had noted them all. But he had a clear grasp of all those results. If he took the field, breaking through would be a simple matter. It wasn't that he was holding anything back in the dungeon strategies he sold to the guilds. Even if they went and tried them, they'd basically be following the same line of thinking outlined in those guides. The real issue is a technical one. The higher the level, the tougher the dungeon gets. The elite players in the club guilds, they were all Glory veterans. But this level 40 dungeon was already beyond the three of them. If this were a starter dungeon like the one in the beginner village or the Forest of Greer right after, the three of them could clear it with no problem at all. And it was precisely in these more challenging scenarios that the superior skill of players like Yi Shu, Su Mu Cheng, and even Tang Ru could truly shine through in their results. The most obvious example? Yi Shu's team still refused to bring a cleric. Meanwhile, the club-backed dungeon teams at this level rarely dared to go without one. As the moment drew near, Yi Shu grew even more careful. The most direct reason the guilds hated him was his absolute monopoly over dungeon records. The major guilds must have known by now that Happy was finally about to sink its claws into the dungeon records. Perhaps they'd been planning this all along, just waiting for this final moment to strike at Happy. The midnight bell finally tolled. Yeshu and his team had already arrived at the entrance to a dungeon on Thousand Wave Lake. Before this time, Yeshu had carefully scouted the surrounding area and indeed found no trace of any other guild members. That means we don't have to worry about an ambush the moment we leave the dungeon.
It's really this quiet? Feels a bit off.
Yeshu said in the team chat while scratching his head.
Calm down. You're not happy about this. You just don't feel right unless your name is in red, do you?
Chen Guo watched from the sidelines, utterly unimpressed. On this momentous day of the dungeon challenge, Chen Guo felt that as the mastermind behind it all, she should naturally come and supervise in person. The regulars at Thousand Wave Lake had gotten used to the fact that a woman's voice would occasionally pop up from Yishu's side. According to the introduction, this woman was the real boss behind it all. Hearing this, Chen Cheng, Ma Hupao, and the others were inwardly shaken. Just what kind of person could be the big boss behind a god like Yi Chu? Hearing that the big boss behind the scenes had come to personally oversee the operation today, they naturally took this dungeon challenge seriously. The two of them sat bolt upright, not daring to be the least bit careless.
Let's go in.
With that, Yishu directed Lord Grimm to be the first into the dungeon, the other four following close behind. It had been a long time since she'd challenged a dungeon record, and Tang Ro was rather fond of that sort of thing. Her fighting spirit was at its peak, but she knew that breaking a record required attention to every detail, something Yi Shu had already drilled into her. They'd been running that dungeon every day for the past few days. Their strategy was already polished to perfection. They could have set the record long ago. They were just holding back, waiting to claim it under the happy banner. After all, it's the same group of people. If they'd already set a record earlier, whether they could surpass themselves later, even Ye Shu couldn't say for sure. Surpassing yourself is always the hardest thing to do. As for the records this team could set, Ye Shu was still quite confident. In terms of pure skill, Thousand City and Monday Morning Quarterback might not match Steamed Bun Invasion, but Steamed Bun's rookie status is a ticking time bomb. When it came to the precise work of setting a dungeon record, bringing Baozi along actually made Ye Shu even more nervous. Even though Baozi had gotten pretty familiar with the game by now, Ye Shu was still worried he'd get a wild idea and do something completely off the wall. Yi Shu was actually more at ease with Thousand City and Monday Morning Quarterback, since they were both Glory veterans. Following the strategy they'd practiced for days, everyone went all out this time. Yi Shu charged ahead, taking the position that would be the main tank in a regular party, but his teammates knew that Yi Shu's tank wasn't a conventional one. A conventional tank relies on a host of skills that generate aggro to hold it steady. This required the DPS classes in the team to carefully control their output, ensuring they didn't pull aggro or hit the wrong target. But Ye Shu's tanking relied entirely on overwhelming damage output to seize aggro. The others barely needed to control their attacks. It could be said that Ye Shu alone shouldered the vast majority of the dungeon's difficulty, which significantly reduced what the others had to pay attention to and handle. With this playstyle, veterans like Qin Cheng and Ma Hupao found it downright embarrassing to make a mistake. Their assigned tasks were just too simple for them.